I'm sure you've heard these before. Does anyone know Newton's 3 laws of motion? They show up in pop culture. Yeah. An object in motion will stay in motion. I've kind of given you the framework for that, but yes. Newton's first law is this. An object in motion will stay in motion. And an object at rest will stay at rest. Unless what? Unless acted upon by something. Unless acted upon by what? Sorry? An unbalanced force. You bet. You guys have forces acting on you right now, and you're not moving. You will stay not moving unless someone comes up and applies some sort of unbalanced force to you. I don't know, maybe your chair disappears, and now there's no force holding you up, so you fall to the ground. The person sitting beside you doesn't feel like you should stay in your chair, so Dana just gives Irem a big two-handed shove. Now all of a sudden there's an unbalanced force on Irem, and she goes flying towards the TV. You're gonna continue doing what you're doing until an unbalanced force acts on you. This is also called the law of inertia. Inertia is probably something you've heard before as well. Can anyone give a definition for what inertia is? What is your understanding of that concept? What size lead do you need, Brad? What did Kale just offer you? Okay, I've got one piece of 0.7 left. I won't throw it because it'll break the lead inside, but you can have it. Inertia is, yeah. What do you think of when you hear that word? What does that word mean to you, inertia? Hands up if you've at least heard the word before. There's some of you. Okay. If we're not sure how to define it, how do you know if something has it? If it has mass. Okay. So inertia is dependent on something's mass. The more massive something is, the more inertia it has, theoretically. Is that what you mean? Like, is that your understanding of it? Yeah. Okay. Why are you connecting mass with inertia, Kyle? Or what is it about massive things that leads you to believe they have inertia?
I guess they have a bigger impact when they have to hit other things.
They have a bigger impact when they hit other things, okay.
Must mean they have more like momentum or power behind it.
Okay. Momentum, it's certainly connected to the concept of momentum, absolutely. So you said it's got a bigger impact when it hits something, which implies there's another concept connected to this idea of inertia. What's the other piece to it? Well, now we're defining it, okay?
Resistance to change motion.
You bet. That is the definition of, that is one way to frame the definition of inertia. The more inertia you have, the more resistant you are to changing your motion. And mass is absolutely connected to this concept of inertia. The more massive something is, the harder it is to change its motion. The example I always give is if my 2-year-old is running at you, or if I decide to run at you, which of us is going to be easier to stop? Me or my 2-year-old? My My 2-year-old is in the neighborhood of 30 pounds. I'm in the neighborhood of 230 pounds. Which of us is going to be easier to bring to a stop, assuming we're moving at the same speed? You think I'm going to be easier for you to stop? The 2-year-old, right? Even if we're walking at you, like you don't have to be moving very fast. If my 2-year-old is walking at you, you put a hand on the forehead and it's done. If I'm walking at you and I really decide that I want to, I would never because it would be weird. I'm your teacher, you're my student. But if I'm going to walk through you, stopping me, or even let's go someone bigger than me, Fuj. You guys, most of you who know who Mr. Fujimura is, if Fuj decided that he wants to go through where you are, what chance do you have of stopping him? The answer, not a lot. Fuj is a big guy. If he wants to go through you, he's going to. So mass is, and so he's got a lot of inertia. You don't have to be moving very fast to have a lot of inertia. Inertia is resistance to change in motion, and it's connected primarily to the mass an object has. The more mass you have, the harder it is to change that. It's also connected to the velocity you have already. The more extreme the change, the more inertia is going to be present. If you're hardly moving, if I'm walking slowly and you decide that you want me to be going the other way and you shove me backwards, it's a relatively small change in velocity. It's not going to be as hard for you to change my velocity as if I was running at you and you decide to try and push me backwards. If I'm running at you and you decide to push me backwards, the amount of inertia I have is that much bigger. It's going to be harder for you to do. So this is Newton's first law. This is where he laid his foundation for his, effectively he wrote the book on motion. Is this idea of inertia. Inertia's resistance to change in motion is dependent on mass and velocity. And we're going to go back and take a look at this over here.
Please excuse the interruption. Would the following students please come down to the Learning Commons to do their learning survey with Ms. Fleming? Simran Saran, Diego Velasquez, Kaylin Romano, Wyatt Nowalski, Daniel Hayes, Lita Henner, David Shima, Dalton McDonald, Jaden Jeffries, Caleb Peete, Roshan Graywall, Yasneet Randawa, Matthew Stedman, Shamit Karud, Gernor Carr, Nayu Ono. Thank you.
Okay, David, I think you were on that list. Head down to the rotunda and we'll see you back in a little bit. Okay, so that's inertia, resistance to change in motion. Let's go back and talk about that unbalanced force again. We're going to continue to rework this definition until we have something slightly more mathy. An unbalanced force, there's another language here we have for an unbalanced force, and it's similar to something, for those of you who have looked at like income or bookkeeping, you've played with this idea before. When you're dealing with money and you're talking about how much money is coming into your account versus how much money is going out of your account, there's language we use around those values. Let's say you're working for me and I pay you $1,000. You don't get to keep that $1,000. You've worked 10 hours for me at $100 an hour. You're getting $1,000, but off of that $1,000, you lose a bunch of deductions. For those of you who have jobs, I'm sure you've seen this before. You lose EI, you lose CPP, you lose, maybe you're working hourly, so maybe I take vacation pay off that. Or maybe you get vacation pay, I don't know. And at the end of the day, maybe you only take home $850. What do we call that $850 you got to take home when I originally was prepared to hand you $1,000, Colden? Gross is the 1,000. What's the 850 called? The amount that you actually get, sire. We call that net income. So your gross income is everything that was available to you. Your net income was what you actually got to take home after the deductions were pulled away. We use that same language here when we're talking about unbalanced forces. We don't talk about gross force because that doesn't make sense, because right now there's a bunch of forces acting on you that you're probably not, some of them you're not even aware of. You don't often think about gravity until it impacts you negatively. You don't necessarily think about the chair until your butt gets uncomfortable. You don't think about the fact that there's air pressure pushing down on you until now all of a sudden you're underwater and you can feel the pressure and it causes you discomfort. We're used to just the forces that are acting on us. When a bonus force comes in that doesn't have a partner to balance it, it's like we use that same language that we use for the income that you actually receive. We call an unbalanced force a net force. And it's that same language we use, that net is the same language we use around income. So a net of the unbalanced force, from now on, we're going to start calling this idea of a net force. And where this guy comes from, how you calculate the net force, is we have to figure out what the sum of all the forces is. And we're going to start to add these things together. And so the mathematical language we're going to use here is if you have an unbalanced force, what that means is the net force, or F net, we're going to call it, and we're going to say that that is the sum of all the forces. The net forces is not equal to 0. That's how we're going to start defining these unbalanced forces. So an object in motion is going to stay in motion. An object at rest will stay at rest unless acted upon by a non-zero net force, is how we would talk about this piece down here. And how then the motion changes is connected to this idea of inertia. So today we're going to talk about inertia in a lot more detail. You experience inertia, again, you only are cognitively aware of your inertia when it tries to change. So hands up if you've ever been go-karting, or you drive yourself places, or you have a friend who drives you around recklessly. Excellent, there we go. Hopefully you've experienced at least one of those 3 scenarios. When you're driving around, whether it's go-karting or with your reckless friend, because you're not reckless, you guys are all safe drivers, but everyone has a friend who's reckless. Where do you notice your own resistance to change in motion? There's 3 times this happens. Braking is 1. Accelerating. And turning. The only 3 times your velocity is actually trying to change. How does inertia feel to you when you're braking? What does your body's desire to maintain its motion cause you to feel when someone's braking and you're on the car? Especially if the braking is hard. It's hard braking. Your body wants to continue going forward. The braking is slowing the car down, and so what is keeping you back? The seatbelt. And if you're not wearing the seatbelt, what's going to stop you? The dashboard. And if you're going too fast and the dashboard's not going to stop you, then the windshield might. If you're going even faster still, the faster you're going, the more inertia you have, the more resistant you are to changing that, you might end up going through the windshield. There are layers designed to keep you in the car, and if you have so much inertia that they can't change it quick enough, you're going through the windshield. When you're accelerating, what does your inertia cause you to feel? It feels like you're getting pulled back into your seat. But really, your body's like, I wasn't moving. I would like to continue not moving. And the car's like, nope, we're going for a ride. And it envelops you and pushes you forward. It feels like you're getting sucked back. But really what's happening is that cushiony part's sliding around you, forcing your body that wants to stay still to continue going forward. And then turning. What is turning? Or how does turning impact? Or sorry, how does the experience of turning reveal to you your own inertia? What does your body want to do? Your body wants to go straight because you were going straight before. You were going straight before. Your body was totally content with that state. And now to make the turn, you have to, an unbalanced force has to be applied. And your body is resistant to that change. And so you feel it like you're getting flung to the side of the car, when really what's happening is you're trying to go forward, and depending on how you're harnessed in, it might just be a lap belt. If it's the lap belt, you're going to get dragged by the hips around the corner, and the most massive part of you, your torso, wants to keep going straight. If it's a whole harness, then it's maybe just your head that you feel wants to keep going straight, and you're kind of dragging that around the corner.
Please excuse
So you experience your own inertia
the following students in the Learning Commons to do their learning survey
this way.
Gershon Graywall, Matt DeMarais, Jasmine Carr, Reena Sharma,
Oh my gosh, why are we doing this?
Sahil Orya Kahale, Ty Featherstone, Adeline Bueller, Alejandro Lopez, Jeremiah Ratflack. Thank you.
Okay, was that you? Did they call it? No? Okay. Okay, so another way to think of Newton's first law is that that if there is no net force on an object, it's going to stay at constant velocity. If it's not moving, constant velocity is 0. Okay, let's do some examples. Imagine a book sitting on a table. There's a force of gravity pulling down on the book. There is a force supporting this thing. Let's look at what's actually going on here. Let's draw the free body diagram. There's the book. Yes. Oh yeah, Kale missed all this. So Kale, a free body diagram is where it's a simplified diagram of whatever object you're talking about. Most of them are going to be blocks or circles. And we're going to label all the forces that are acting. Use it to analyze what's going on. So if you've got a block or a book, in this case, sitting on the table, what forces are acting on this thing? Gravity is acting down. Gravity always acts straight down. And the normal force always acts perpendicular to whatever surface you're in contact with. So let's say that's the scenario. And we're going to bring in this language here. So if this thing's not moving, we say the net force is equal to 0. If you've got questions, Kale, I'm happy to answer them. Okay, Fn, so I've got on the very first page, there's a list of forces. Every one of them starts with an F. F represents the fact that this is a force, and then the letter that comes after it's going to represent what that force is. So Fn, N stands for normal. It's a force that exists between a surface and an object. G stands for gravity. And there's going to be a bunch of these that get listed. We'll get you that list if you haven't watched the video. So if F net equals 0 and F net represents the sum of all the forces, we have to start adding up these forces. They're vectors, so they have direction. We demonstrated that with an arrow up and an arrow down. Back when we were dealing with kinematics, though, when we were labeling things, we had to define a direction to be positive. So we have to continue to do that. What direction do you want to call positive? Up? Sure. We can call up positive. So on our free body diagram, let's start adding these things. And it's totally arbitrary. You can decide down was positive. We're not gonna, but because Raina said up, so did Emma. So if F net equals 0, F net represents the sum of all the forces that are acting. Because this thing's not moving, we know that this is true. So then now let's add up these forces. Fn is positive, so F net is going to be Fn plus Fg is negative. So we're going to have a negative Fg in there. And so that's going to be equal to 0 because this thing's not moving. So I can rewrite this as Fn minus Fg equals 0. And so now we've got a we can, and this is a very simple mathematical proof. But fundamentally you understand the idea that if I isolate this thing for Fn, I'm going to add Fg over to the other side. Fn has to be equal to Fg, which you can understand intuitively, right? You're not getting launched up into the sky as you sit on your chair. You're not getting sucked into the ground as you sit on your chair. So those forces have to be equal and opposite. This is the math behind that. Let's add something to this. Let's say for some reason you come up and you decide that you're going to place your hand upon the book and you're going to push down. You are going to apply a force downwards. Do it to Kai's binder. It's a very simple demonstration. So, lean upon the binder. What is this doing to the other forces that are acting on the thing? All of them. What's changing now? You regularly say that this is frustratingly difficult, but your intuition is very good though. So is the book moving? So the forces still have to be balanced. I'm pushing down on the thing. I'm resting most of my torso's weight on this thing. And so there is a significant applied force, and the thing's not moving. So let's analyze the thing. We can analyze it just like we did this one. It's a simple analysis. It's not moving, so Fnet has to equal 0. What forces are acting on this thing now? You said up was positive, so Fn is still up. So Fn, I'm going to skip the step in here where we add the negative. I'm just going to go straight to subtracting the things that are acting in the opposite direction. So Fn is up, so it's positive. From Fn, we're going to take away the applied force that I've added. We're going to take away Fg, and this is still all going to be equal to 0. So when I lean on Kai's binder, what's changed? Instead of Fn being equal to Fg, if we isolate this expression for Fn now, what's Fn going to be equal to? Sorry? Well, if I add these two over, it's not going to be negative anymore. But yeah, you got the idea. Fn now, the normal force, is going to be equal to the applied force plus gravity. It was equal to gravity before because gravity was the only thing acting. But now, because I'm leaning on the book and the book's still not moving, Fn is going to have to be equal to the applied force plus gravity. We've amplified a very specific force. Fn grew, the normal force acting on that book grew to compensate for the fact that I was leaning on it. So Fn now is going to be equal to Fa plus Fg. This force has increased. Second example. If I drop a book from 2 meters, which you have done, you didn't drop a book. Some of you dropped pencil cases, mushy bananas. What else did you? A baseball someone dropped. You've dropped objects from 2 meters before. There is only a downwards force, gravity, acting on the thing. Now the forces are unbalanced. What does the book do? Here's our book. We drop the thing. In the air, gravity is the only thing acting on it. In the lab we did last unit, you saw the object do what? It's sped up. We call that accelerating. So the book accelerates. And so let's tweak this here. So we've got Fnet now. Fnet's not equal to 0 anymore. Fnet's going to be equal to Fg. So the force of gravity acting downwards on our object causes the thing to accelerate. So I'm going to use this symbol here, and I'll explain it in a second. It's like infinity, but I've opened it on one end. Some of you might be used to drawing fish this way. So the force of gravity is proportional, is what this symbol means. Proportional to how the thing accelerates. If I drop the book on the moon, would it accelerate the same as if we dropped it on Earth? Probably not. The gravity on the moon is weaker, so the acceleration would be lower. And so that's what this idea here is. The force of gravity is proportional to acceleration means the force of gravity is causing this thing to accelerate, but they're not directly equal. There is something else perhaps multiplying in here, which we're going to look at on next week, what the relationship is between the force of gravity and the acceleration. But we know there's a relationship. Sorry? Should I zoom in on that word? Or can you read it? Okay. There's a relationship between the force applied and the acceleration of an object. Okay, more examples of inertia. While riding a skateboard or a scooter, unicycle, whatever, some people, when I was in high school, we used shopping carts for this. You'd sit in the shopping cart, your buddy would push the shopping cart, and you'd aim it at a curb, and you hit the curb. Let's draw it, because that's fun. Here's your curb. Here's your skateboard. Here's you. What do? You keep going. You fly that way. Skateboard stops, you keep going. While you're sitting in the back seat of the car, you make a hard right turn. Let's draw this one from the top down. Here's the car. Here's you. Now the car is going to make a hard right turn. You were going this way. Your body still wants to go this way. So what do you feel? Bless you. What do you feel? Or if you're in a school bus, everyone did this in the school bus in elementary school. The person on the outside of the vehicle while you're going around a corner is going to get what? Crushed against the outside of the car. You get pushed against the side of the car. And then there's all sorts of other safety stuff that are connected to these ideas too. We've talked about this once already. We'll talk about it again. Headrests are placed in cars to prevent whiplash injuries. If you've ever been rear-ended in a car, I'm sorry, that's wildly uncomfortable. But the headrest is there, if you've set it properly, to prevent a whiplash injury. How does that happen? If here's you in a car, we'll put the car there. We'll put the seat there. This one has a headrest. This one doesn't. If you're sitting in the seat, this one has no headrest. This one does. And you get rear-ended from behind. You're stationary. Your body wants to remain stationary. Your head is a fairly massive part of you. It's about 20 pounds. Regardless of what the rest of you weighs, your head's about 20 pounds. Not an insignificant mass sitting on your shoulders. If you get rear-ended, what's going to happen to this person? The head stays where it is, and the rest of you moves forward. Now your body's doing this. And this is what causes a whiplash injury. If you have the headrest, let's put the speed lines in here. If you have a headrest and you get pushed forward, then ideally, again, assuming you're actually using the headrest the way the headrest is supposed to be used, you just get pushed back into it as the whole thing moves forward. The headrest isn't there for your comfort, it's there for your safety. I'll draw one more here at the bottom, a rather extreme version. Let's say you're a pilot. How do I want to draw this? Let's draw kind of a bigger version of the plane. Plane has a nose. Here you are sitting, flying the plane. This is just the front end of the plane. It's a really bad drawing, but we'll draw it. I said before that inertia is resistance to change in motion. It's related to the mass and the velocity of the object. So I've been using this example because generally speaking, flying in an aircraft happens at really, really high speeds. And so you've got a lot of velocity. So even things with very little bits of mass are going to be resistant to having their motion changed. So if you are a normal person, you have blood flowing throughout your body, being carried by red blood cells. Your blood vessels, your red blood cells are really, really small. I hope that's not an earth-shattering new piece of information. In a jet, if for whatever reason the pilot decides to do this, takes your jet and decides, you're the pilot, you decide to fly upwards at really, really high speeds. It's going to happen to you. At high speeds, even things that don't have a lot of mass are resistant to having their motion changed. So if the blood was here and you do this, your blood wants to stay where it was. And if your body now is moving up around your blood, where's it going to go? Down. It's going to stay where it was. And if the rest of you goes up, your blood's going to start to all pool up down here. If your blood's all in your feet, what's that going to do to you? Not right away. Before it kills you, what's it going to do to you? First thing you're going to experience is passing out.
Can I have Mary Mercer, Ashika Sachdeva, Kyohi Dick, Bibi Sultani, Ahmed Al-Mansour, Daria Ilin,
Student satisfaction survey.
Jaspreet Kaur,
Apparently. These announcements are suggesting they want everyone to do it. Yes.
Jamal McAllister, Ganor Singh,
The more these go on, the more I would encourage you to say that you're very unsatisfied.
and Alana
Because this is
Bay
stupid.
to the Learning Commons to do your learning survey, please.
They've been trying to call down grades, and these are everyone they've missed so far. Okay, so your blood pools in your feet, you pass out. If you have your blood down in your feet long enough for your feet, you're absolutely right, you die. And so if you are a pilot, generally you don't want to do this if you're loaded up with passengers, but a 747 is fully capable of doing this. If you're a jet pilot, there's equipment that they give you to prevent this from happening. You wear pressure suits that are designed to compress your legs so that the blood doesn't have space to go down into them. It has to stay up in your torso and chest. But then there's also training that your body does. You can tighten your blood vessels by flexing the muscles that exist in your legs. Back in World War II, they didn't have the flight suits that they have now, and these fighter pilots still needed to remain conscious while they were flying in circles. And watching videos of like 90-year-old former fighter pilots totally fine inside an aircraft, and watching people my age who have never done this before just pass out because we don't know what we're doing is really quite entertaining. Another application of this is someone's designed it, but they've never built it. In this country, have we all heard of MAID? Medical Assistance in Dying, formerly called euthanasia. There are ways that, have we heard of this concept of euthanasia? Really? You guys haven't heard of this? Okay, so if you're terminally ill, you can choose that you don't want to continue living, and then doctors get involved in that process. Someone, it's actually a German engineer designed what's called the euthanasia coaster, which does this. Everyone gets in the roller coaster. You go to the top of the thing and you go down, and it puts you in circles, ever tightening circles, and just keeps the blood in your feet until you've passed out and died. These things exist, and so we wanted, the concept of inertia is tied to really quite important little details in extreme circumstances. We want to design roller coasters so that they're fun and don't kill you. The fighter pilots need to fly and do what they do, but need to survive the process as well. So this idea of inertia has a whole bunch of really quite extreme implications. What I want you to do, flip the page. There's 7 scenarios that I've given you here. The one I want you to cross off number 5 because we haven't talked about weight yet. Forget number 5. I'll give you a couple minutes. You don't need the 35 minutes we have left in the block. There's other stuff I want to do yet today. But I want you to take some time with the people sitting around you, and I want you to talk through questions 1 to 4 and 6 and 7. 1 to 4, 6, and 7. Question number 6 is this guy down here. They've given you a picture for it. And this guy here is question number 7. These are all applications of inertia. I'll give you, 15 minutes to talk it through with people sitting at your table, and then we'll take it up as a class. On your mark, get set, go. Discuss these 6 questions.